Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies. And you know they are really groovy. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies. And we know they are really groovy.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, and welcome to another live edition of Two Guys and a Gal talking about movies. Tonight we are talking about Charles Bronson. He's one of Hollywood's most enigmatic figures, renowned for his rugged persona, stoic presence, and a commanding screen presence. I assure you that you have seen at least one movie with him in it. He was born into a working class background, and his journey to Hollywood stardom is a testament to the distinct appeal he brought to the screen. Bronson became synonymous with tough, no-nonsense characters, often portraying loners or anti-heroes who delivered justice on their own terms, earning Bronson a place in the pantheon of legendary action stars. What sets him apart is not just his ability to portray violence and vengeance, but his subtle depth as an actor. Unlike many action stars of his era, Bronson's characters were often silent, emotionally reserved, and morally complex, imbuing his films with a sense of gravitas. He was never flashy or overtly charismatic in the traditional sense, but his quiet intensity and physical presence on screen made him a captivating figure in a range of genres. He became a cultural icon for the archetype he embodied, a man of few words, strong convictions, and an unyielding will to stand up against injustice, regardless of the personal cost. His impact continues to resonate with audiences, and his films remain influential, cementing his place as a true Hollywood legend. And I'm pretty sure that's why Manny Zamora chose him. So to find out for sure, let's bring on Manny Zamora. And Rory, yes, he's got his popcorn, Penland.
Yes.
People tune in for the popcorn now. They tune in to watch you eat popcorn.
I hope I tune in for the popcorn.
They get disappointed if you don't have the popcorn. Well, I think one time you had trail mix and someone mentioned it. They said, hey, where's the popcorn?
Exactly.
We expect it, Rory.
We are here for the popcorn.
Trail mix.
Trail mix just doesn't do it.
It's close by.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same.
But when you're talking about movies, you know.
You got to have the popcorn, right?
You got to have the popcorn, exactly.
Especially if you're talking about action movies with Charles Bronson.
That looks exactly, wow. It's almost like you do impressions. It's almost like you do impressions.
Almost. Almost, you know.
Well, we do Christopher Walken night. We should.
We haven't done Walken yet, have we?
We haven't done him.
No, we haven't. No.
You know what? Every night is Christopher Walken night.
It is.
I like to tell people it's my birthday. But I tell them, don't tell anyone. And of course, we get cake.
All right.
That's my favorite story about him. Like 3 different actors have told that story.
Oh,
he does that.
Gosh.
He goes, "Oh, it's my birthday."
Every day should be Christopher Walken day, but tonight, except for tonight,
no, it's Martin Luther King Day.
Tonight it's Bronson, right, Manny? So you chose Bronson, and
I did.
What is it that resonates with you about him?
Well, Charles Bronson is quite literally one of my childhood heroes. I grew up in, I came of age when he was during his heyday, and there was just something about him, and he has a certain kind of, let's be honest, he's not the most handsome man in the world. He has a face that looks like it was carved out of a block of granite or something, and he, as far as his acting range, he had the same haircut, he had the same, in a lot of his films, he had the same mustache. But regardless of that, there was just something, he had something that a lot of actors lack. And that is, or rather that a lot of actors should have. And that is, he had presence. He had this ineffable charisma. You just locked into him, no matter what he was playing. You know, whether it was one of his westerns or one of his like cop movies or gangster films or whatever he was doing, you were right there. You know, you bought every single thing that he was doing. And there's just something about him. And I was telling somebody else, I said, you know, I really feel like Bronson was the Schwarzenegger of his time. You know, he come on, do his thing, you know, and then go on, you know. And of course, like a lot of actors of that generation, he came up on television, did a lot of TV before he went into movies. He was even in a Twilight Zone episode with Elizabeth Montgomery. You know, and did every show possible, you know, from that and all the different cop shows and all the medical shows. And Bronson cut his teeth on television and transitioned to movies and became a huge movie star. He kind of did cycle back to television and later in his career in the 80s. But for the most part, we remember him for his movies.
I liked him because he kicked ass.
There you go. There you go.
Renee mentioned his intense presence, the quiet quality. Yeah, sometimes when Stallone and Schwarzenegger, you mentioned Schwarzenegger, sometimes when they do movies, you're like, don't talk. You know, just pick up the tire iron and kill people. But with Bronson, it's like when he did talk, what he said meant something. You know, I mean, it was you know, again, like you say, you got that quiet intensity. A lot of his early characters, and you mentioned the hair and the mustache. That was the 70s look.
Yeah.
That was the persona they created for Hollywood created for him in the 70s, with the kind of the shoulder length hair and the little mustache that he wasn't quite fully grown in. I call it the Pedro Pascal mustaches.
Yeah.
But before that, in the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, he was pretty clean shaven and short hair.
Yeah.
He started out as Charles Buczynski, which is his real name, Charles Dennis Buczynski, and it was in House of Wax, which was going to be my top honorable mention because it was his first real movie that he really did. And then I think there was probably a period where, again, because of his looks, he probably didn't get a lot of roles, so he ended up doing a lot of TV. Like you said, TV came in the 50s and just kind of took over, and that's how a lot of actors, you know, got their work. And again, a lot of them went from TV to screen. So I don't think they really thought it was going to be that way. I thought they probably thought, okay, I'm going to be just TV for the rest of my life, you know. But for him, luckily, he ended up in The Magnificent Seven. He ended up in a lot of movies that had there were ensemble. The Dirty Dozen. The Great Escape, where he was just one of, like, you know, a zillion characters, you know, that are all working towards a common goal. But again, his presence was always, you always felt him. You always knew he was there. And that's why, and again, that takes a lot of charisma, as she said earlier. So, he's one of those rare actors that, you know, he's an action star, but he can act. He is a good actor. And, I mean, he's got acting chops. And you knew if you bought a ticket to a Bronson movie, you were going to be entertained.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's the other thing I was going to mention is that you always knew what you were going to get with Bronson. You know, you were going to get a lot of action, a lot of, you know, just excitement, a few explosions, maybe.
Bad guys.
Yeah, beating up the bad guys, and every now and again he'd play a bad guy himself. But for the most part, he was usually in the hero role. So, all right, well, why don't you start us off this time?
You want me to start off?
Yeah.
Number one is, I think it's going to surprise you. It's The Magnificent Seven, because he's got a kind of a smaller role in it. You know, it's an ensemble piece.
Right.
But I'll tell you, him and James Coburn both really stood out in their characters as part of the seven.
Right.
And that was not easy to do because you were up against Yul Brynner, you were up against everybody was fighting for ways to steal the camera time in that movie.
Oh yeah.
God, Great Escape. Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen. Steve
Yeah,
McQueen.
Steve
Yeah.
McQueen. Yeah. Right on down to Horst Buchholz, you know.
Right.
There was always, you know, they were always trying to find a way to steal the focus from the other six guys in the seven.
Yeah.
And he's got a speech as he's dying. He's like telling the kids, "Look at your father. Look at them. You should be proud of them." You know,
Yeah.
it's just like he's dying and he's giving this great speech to the kids, and he pulls it off. You know, that could be a ridiculous situation for any other actor, but I mean, he pulled it off.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was saying. You know, here we are. Here's these other six actors, a lot of them already established, like big stars, like Yul Brynner. And then there were some that were also coming up from TV besides him. There was, you know, you mentioned Steve McQueen, the guy from Man from U.N.C.L.E., whose name escapes me at the moment. And, you know,
the Man from U.N.C.L.E., Robert Vaughn.
Robert Vaughn, thank you very much. And you know, Horst Buchholz, who was they were trying to promote as the next big thing. But again, you like I said, you remember Bronson. You remember this again, that quiet, you know, when he spoke, it was like, oh my gosh, he spoke, and you wanted to listen.
But even when he didn't speak, that's the thing. Is like I think they come upon him and he's chopping wood, and they say something he doesn't like, and he just stops chopping wood, and he gives him the Bronson stare.
It gives him the look, yeah.
And it's just like, oh, that's a badass.
Yeah. And it's interesting, of all the characters, of all the, you know, all these other guys, the kids all gravitate to him. You know, and he becomes kind of their protector or mentor or friend or whatever. But and I gotta admit, the only reason that it didn't make my top 5 is because it was such an ensemble piece, and I really wanted to focus more on where he was the central character, where he was the central focus. So those are more the movies that but
that's usually the way I do it, but for some reason that one really stood out. His performance in that one really stood out, even though it was an ensemble piece.
Well, for a time, I gotta admit that was actually my number 1 too. But then I started thinking about it, and it's like I'm gonna save those for honorable mentions. Even though, like you said, it is great performance, and definitely, I can see why you would make it your number 1. So no.
Well, like in the Great Escape and the Dirty Dozen, he's in there, but his presence is not felt as much as in the Magnificent Seven for some reason. For me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. Well, my number 1, speaking of, you know, sort of going off on his own, is Death Wish.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
It's in my top 5.
Yeah, well, good. It's just one of the incredible, one of the maybe not the first, but certainly one of the most memorable of sort of these revenge fantasies. You know, the guy
Vigilante movies.
Vigilante, yeah, him going out and taking care of business. You know, after his wife and daughter are attacked by a sleazy gang of ne'er-do-wells led by young Jeff Goldblum. His wife was played by Hope Lang. And
I don't know why. We mentioned this on an earlier show. I thought Hope Lang was the woman that he was dating, because she played his wife in this movie, but it was actually Jill Ireland that he ended up marrying. He married,
right.
He met her on one of the films that they did, one of the early films that they did, and they hit it off, and he ended up getting married. And she was in a lot of his movies.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you know, and he starts off as this kind of regular businessman, you know, peaceful guy. You know, you think, oh, this is somebody who wouldn't hurt a fly, but then all that happens, And yeah, he quickly changes, and he starts off slow. He has this, like, I think, sock full of quarters or something that he, like, beating people up with, and then eventually he gets a gun that was actually given to him by somebody he met in, like, Arizona or New Mexico, something like that, some business deal that he'd made, and he gifted him this gun. And it's first it's like, yeah, I'm not into that, but then of course that becomes his weapon,
Weapon of choice.
weapon of choice, yeah. And of course this became a franchise, as they call them now. It led to, I don't know, like half a dozen sequels. And they
Yeah.
started getting, as he started getting older, it just started getting less and less believable, and the plot started
Yeah.
just getting more and more ridiculous. But the first couple were okay, but still not as good
One
as
and
the
two,
first one.
yeah, one and two. Two is not as good as the first one, but again, after two, that was
Yeah,
it. It was just like, forget it. You know,
it just went. Yeah, it's
two.
just it's
One ends with
it's like the
him.
dirty.
I think it was in a like an underground rail station, and there some guys are cavorting around, and he goes. It's a great take at the end of the movie. He doesn't have his gun because
Yeah,
they kicked him out of town. Uh, Vincent
yeah.
Gardenia, is it right? Vincent Gardenia
Vincent Gardenia, the police.
finds out, and yeah, and kicks him out of
Yeah,
town. He's also in the second one, and
yeah.
at the end of the second one, he's talking to one of his business people. His name is Kersey, Paul Kersey, I think,
Right,
and
right.
he says, "I hope you're going to be able to make it for that. I know you're busy at night." And he goes, "What else would I be doing?" And then they show these smash shots of the city and shadows on the walls and stuff, and you hear the gunfire.
Mm-hmm.
So those were good endings to those movies, and they should have just left it at that. After that, it was just got, like you said, it just got ridiculous.
It just got silly. Yeah,
Well,
and
they were just rehashing.
exactly. It was just rehashing. It's just like, okay. And anyway, yeah. So
But in the first one, he actually is Kersey. He talks a lot more in the film.
yeah, yeah. He has a lot
He
more.
performs a lot more. So it's
Right.
my number 3 on my list.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, because he does act more in that movie. And in 2, yeah, and again, Death Wish 1 and 2 are pretty much on the same level with me with 3. Death Wish is a little better, but so there's my number 2. It's Once Upon a Time in the West,
Okay.
where he nearly doesn't talk at all in that movie. But this was his spaghetti western. This was his Eastwood,
Mm-hmm.
And again, Death Wish was supposed to be like Dirty Harry, kind of, just in
Yeah.
the same kind of vein.
Right.
But Once Upon a Time in the West is a fantastic. If you have never seen this western, it's probably the best of Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns, and it doesn't have Clint Eastwood in it. It has Bronson. It has
Jason Robards.
Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda.
Oh my God, Henry Fonda agreed to do it only because he gets to play the villain in it, and he is a nasty villain.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah, Jason Robards.
Jason Robards, Claudia Cardinale. Yeah. Amazing cast.
Yeah, it's an awesome, and it's one of the best musical scores by Ennio Morricone too, from the spaghetti westerns. And you get a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
It's just a dynamite. It's like a 3-hour western, but it's a dynamite movie.
But it doesn't feel like it.
And his performance in it is just Bronson candy. It's just great.
Oh yeah. And it's funny,
the man with the harmonica.
Yeah, that's I was going to say. Yeah, his name is his. They just call him Harmonica, because that's kind of his signature.
The man with the harmonica.
Yeah, man with the harmonica, and holy cow, yeah, talk about, like you said, just kicking ass. Yeah,
and not taking names.
And not taking names, exactly. Yeah,
not taking names.
Yeah. So, but you're right.
So that's my number 2. What's your number 2?
I was going to say, yeah, I think it's one of Leone's, next to Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think it's one of his best westerns. My number 2 is a little more change of pace. Bronson and for the kind of movies that we usually think of him. And it's a movie called Hard Times,
Okay.
where he plays this man named Cheney, who is just a drifter. He just goes from town to town, and he hooks up with James Coburn, who we know he co-starred with in Magnificent Seven, who plays this guy who basically is a manager to these boxers, except it's not like and the Great Escape as well, right? He manages these boxers who they do like these underground,
Like
it's
street
like Fight
boxer,
Club,
right?
yeah. It's actual Fight Club.
Yeah.
They're street fighters. They go into garages and wherever, and it's bare knuckle street fighting, and he bets on them and collects the money and what have you. And Bronson comes into town, and he sort of becomes his partner, and they go off, and Coburn owes some money to this gangster that and so, but he also has this major gambling addiction, so he winds up always losing all the money that he's supposed to be paying back to this guy. And eventually Bronson's like, you know what, I've had enough. You're just too unreliable, and he kind of quits at the moment where Coburn's character needs him the most, because this other guy, he's basically brought this heavy hitter, this fighter into town, and of course there's the big climatic fight between the guys. You mentioned Jill Ireland. Jill Ireland has a role in the movie, but unfortunately, surprise, yeah,
she's like in 80% of the movies he did.
Yeah. The only problem is in this particular movie, she really doesn't have a lot to do. They have kind of a romance, I guess you'd call it. Although it's really more like booty calls, basically. And really, it goes nowhere. It's a subplot that just goes nowhere, and it's basically just a way of having her in the movie, I think.
I will do the movie if you put my wife in it.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's what happened.
I'm sure that's what happened in half the movies she was in.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, they could have cut those scenes out, and the movie would have been fine. But anyway, regardless of that, I think it was still a very good movie. Good performance from Bronson and of course Coburn. And the fight scenes were very dramatic, and very well staged. It's just a good story all the way around, and I felt like it was a different, like I said, it was a different kind of role for him.
And before Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, which were basically the same kind of animal.
Yeah, I think so.
Orangutan. that joke was meant.
Yeah.
But it's usually Charles Bronson will try to make like a Clint Eastwood movie with Charles Bronson. That's usually the situation. But in this case, that movie came first, and they went, "Hey, we can do that with Clint." They tried to do it with the Philo Beddoes thing.
Yeah, although his version, those were a little more on the comedic side,
right?
They lean more to the comedy, where this one is pretty serious. Pretty serious drama.
Gordon's cussing like a sailor.
Yeah, and the orangutan and all that, but and those got pretty silly as well. Yeah, I mean, I when I saw them, I was like, okay, you got to take them for what they were. They're just kind of silly. Clint doing comedies and kind of setting up his own image as the tough guy and all that stuff. But
there you go.
Yeah, they don't hold up very well, unfortunately, for multiple viewing, especially with critics, and so. All right, but that was my number 2. And you said your number 3 was?
My number 3 was Death Wish. And Jill Ireland actually is his love interest in Death Wish 2.
Mm-hmm.
God, she's in so many of his movies. Breakheart Pass, she's in that. She's in uh there's a movie called Breakout, which didn't even make my list. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was she's in that. She plays Robert Duvall's wife, and Duvall is sent to prison for a murder he didn't commit. So she hires Charles Bronson to go get him out.
Hmm.
And anyway, I digress. It's not a very good film.
Yeah,
But
it's kind of,
she's in so many of his movies.
yeah,
The 70s movies, I should say.
yeah,
I'm surprised she wasn't in
and
Telephone.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and they hired Lee Remick instead.
Lee
But
Remick,
anyway,
yeah. Yeah, well,
but
Jill
your
Ireland
number
was,
three is what?
was also on television. Well, my number three is hold on, let me refresh my memory. I switched them around so many times. Actually, my number three was Heartbreak Pass.
Okay,
Uh,
Breakheart Pass.
one of his westerns. Breakheart Pass, rather.
It's on my honorable
Not to
mention
be
list. Yeah. And I'll tell you
not to be
why, because it
confused
has
with
a
Breakheart Bridge.
fantastic cast. It really does have a great cast. It's
Yeah.
got Richard Crenna, it's got Ben Johnson, who's done 1,000 westerns. Ben Johnson's a great
Mhm.
western actor. Charles Durning, Ed
Mhm.
Lauter, who does a lot of bad guys in movies.
Mhm.
David Huddleston, worst Santa Claus ever, uh, but a great
Yeah,
character actor.
right.
What's the movie with with the dude? Um, the Coen Brothers movie with the
Oh,
dude.
Big Lebowski.
He's Lebowski.
Right.
If you don't know who David Huddleston is, he's Lebowski. He's the Big Lebowski.
He's
So
the
anyway,
Big
he's in it. It's a train film. You know, they're all racing around on a train, and there's
Yeah.
uh,
It's basically
craziness.
the Orient Express, but in the West.
Yeah.
And Charles Bronson plays.
Every time they go
Uh,
over a bridge, somebody falls off the train.
oh yeah, well yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Um,
big wooden bridge coming up. Get ready.
somebody's about to get pushed off. But yeah, I just it was hard. It was hard picking all all his different westerns. Uh, but
Mm,
I particularly enjoyed this one because again, I felt like it was a little bit different.
mm,
It's a different kind of formula from the usual westerns. Even though there's Indians and there's cavalry and there's all the sort of expected tropes, but it was really, like I said, it was more of a detective story, a whodunit, a murder mystery. Also, you never quite was sure who was who, and Bronson's character is supposed to be this criminal, this murderer that's wanted by the authorities, but it
mm.
turns out that he's not. He's actually a Secret Service agent. Sorry, spoilers.
Yeah.
And but you
He's
can
like
tell that
Jim West from the Wild Wild West.
basically, yeah. And Jill Ireland is in it, as we mentioned,
Yeah.
as the daughter of this major, whatever, or general that's in charge of this fort, that you really don't actually ever see until I think maybe at the end. Who's having who has a relationship with Richard Crenna's character, who's the governor of the state, who's involved in some very shady doings, and I when I saw the movie, and maybe it's because I was a lot younger when I saw the movie, but I thought it was
Yeah.
just incredible. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I like the mystery of it. I like Bronson's character. Again, he's still the tough guy, but he's playing, someone who's very intelligent and very not that he doesn't play intelligent characters, but this one he's, again, he's very this sharp-eyed detective character, kind of a Western sort of hero, Hercule Poirot kind of.
Mhm.
So I just felt it was a very different kind of Western. There was another one that was going to be in its place, but we'll talk about that one later. But
I
anyway,
wanted to
that,
add that
that
there
was
was
my number
another
three.
actor I forgot to mention. His name is Bill McKenna. He's got a real hard look to him, so he usually gets cast as villains.
Yeah.
But he's done a lot of Clint Eastwood movies. He's just about in every Clint Eastwood movie, in the 70s and the 80s. So he was in that one as well.
Yeah,
He
he's
deserves
the
a
one who
nod.
plays he's like the bad guy at the fort, right? The Calhoun, he has his
Yeah, I think
beard, he's
so.
usually bald. Well, that's interesting. So
No,
what's
he's
your
not
number?
bald.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'm thinking of
No.
somebody else.
He's one of the cavalry officers that's on the train.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know yeah.
I know who you're talking about. That guy, the bald guy, is he's done some like Burt Reynolds films.
Yeah, and he usually
he was in
plays
Cannonball Run 2, I believe, and he was in the Hooper as one of the firemen.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I know who you're talking about. I just don't have his name in front of me, but yeah. Again, Bill McKenna is usually a bad guy, and he's in a lot of Clint Eastwood movies.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see him, you go, oh, that guy.
Right.
He's one of the bikers in the Every Which Way But Loose, Any Which Way You Can movies.
Right.
So anyway, let's move on. That was your number 4 or your number 3?
That was my number 3. So
okay,
we're up to number 4 now.
Okay, number 4 on my list is The Valachi Papers, a movie that I had not seen until I was preparing for this show. And another fantastic surprise performance by Joseph Weisman, who we talked about on last week's show. He was in one of the Audrey Hepburn movies, playing a really creepy character. In this one, he plays like the Don. He plays like the Italian Don. And Weisman is a Jewish actor, so he plays great Jewish characters in movies. He's also Dr. No in the first James Bond movie.
Right.
But he plays the head of the family, in this film, who takes Valachi, Charles Bronson's character, under his wing. And he's fantastic. He does a great Italian accent, and he's very, very cool. And he makes the movie. But it is Bronson's movie, and Bronson, I put this up on the top 5 list because Bronson plays himself at different ages, which is interesting. They shoot back and forth between now and they go back into the past,
right?
To show his uprising in the gang, and of course he turns dime on him, and he ends up in witness protection in solitary confinement for the rest of his life, to protect him.
Right.
But it's based on a true story, and it's a good movie. I mean, it's a good actor's movie, and Bronson actually gets a chance to act.
Right.
So it deserved a spot on the top 5 list, I thought.
Yeah. Well, interesting. It was on my top 5 for a while as well, but
it's not an action film.
It's
more of a kind of a Godfather, Goodfellas kind of thing.
Well, that's why it didn't ultimately make my top 5, because I felt it was kind of warmed over Godfather. And I mean, I liked his performance. I liked Joseph Weisman. I thought his Italian accent at times was a little too almost stereotypical. And hey, is it talking like this? And we're going to hit. Yeah, and it just started to like, okay, yeah, I'm not buying it anymore. But I like Bronson in it. Like you said, I like the fact that they kind of went back and forth from the present to him telling the story of how he became this guy, how he rose up in the ranks in this organization. And it started off okay, but after a while, all the shooting and the killing, and it started to look the same. The guys going after each other, and all the gang on gang violence that was going on. And it just felt like I've seen this before, and it was called The Godfather. That's not to say that I didn't like the movie. It's just,
You felt it was a rehash
I felt it was kind of a rehash, yeah.
and not as
But
well
that
done.
still doesn't take away
I
from
get it.
Bronson's performance or any of the other actors' performance. And it was based on a novel, and Peter Maas, who also wrote The French Connection. And like you said, it's based on a true story, the guy named Valachi. Although I think they changed the name to protect the guilty. But no, it's still a good movie. But yeah, I just and watching it again, I was like, yeah, this is a bit of a rehash from The Godfather. So so it kind of it's my first honorable mention. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Just
Fair
didn't
enough.
quite crack the top five. So my number 4
Mhm.
is a movie called Mr. Majestic. And
Okay.
and again, I felt like this one was a little bit different in that
See, now
Bronson
I found it to be kind of formulaic for
really,
his kind of movies. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, it is. But that said, well, first of all, he plays, of all things, a lemon farmer. Not a lemon farmer, a melon
A
farmer.
melon farmer.
He's a
Damn that
melon
dyslexia.
farmer. Exactly. I'm a bullet farmer, motherfucker. He plays a melon farmer who just wants to bring in his crop, and he hires a bunch of guys to work his field, and then this other guy shows
Mexican
up,
migrant workers.
Mexican migrant workers. So there's a bit of relevance to today. He and then he has a run-in with this guy who basically wants to strong arm him into hiring Americans to work the fields, and he basically runs them off. Says, "No, I hire who I want to hire," And the guy presses charges, and he winds up in jail, where he meets up with this guy, played by I got to get this name out, Al Lettieri, who speaking of The Godfather, he was also in The Godfather, and in this one he plays a hitman who's finally been captured. He's in jail. He's about to be transported to prison, and they wind up escaping. He and for a moment there, it turns into what's that movie with Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis, where they're handcuffed together?
I know which one you're talking about. I just can't remember the title.
Yeah, well, it kind of turns into that for a little while, and
Yeah.
Eventually, well, Bronson's plan is to basically turn this guy in because he's a killer, he's a murderer, but he winds up escaping again, and now he's the one out for vengeance on Bronson, and so basically the movie is Bronson trying to stay one step ahead of this killer who wants to take him out.
Right.
Yeah, you hit it. Yeah, it is formulaic, and it's like, okay, I guess we've we've kind of seen the story before as well, but I just thought it was a really good action movie. A little over the top, certainly, but I like this character. I like that, like I said, he's not playing a cop. He's not playing somebody who's in any kind of profession. He's the melon farmer, and that's what makes it different for me. And like I said, he's just this guy. He wants to run his business, and then he runs afoul of all these other characters who are trying to keep him from doing, just carrying on with his life. So anyway, I enjoyed that. I thought it was, again, a little bit different from some of his other roles. So that's my number 4.
I don't know the actor's name, but the most memorable part of it for me is the little Weasley guy that they send out as the enforcer to go try to get him to change his mind about the workers.
Oh yeah.
And he ends up kicking the guy's ass every time.
Yeah.
I don't know the character actor's name, but he plays like the same character in every movie. He plays like the second guy. and he goes out and tries to enforce or do something bad, and whoever the hero of the movie is just wipes up the floor with him.
Yeah. His name is Paul Koslo.
Okay.
Paul Koslo. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, he's the guy who runs afoul of at the beginning, who wants to muscle in on his business, and yeah, kicks his ass, and so anyway, but yeah, he's a good little character actor as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right. So what was did we talk about your number 4?
Yeah, Valachi Papers is my number 4.
Valachi
It's number
Papers.
5 now.
Okay, so we're at number 5. So
I
what's your
think
number
we're going to
5?
tie on number 5.
Okay.
I think so. Let's see.
Maybe.
Telephone.
Yes, actually, yes, you're right.
That's your number 5.
That's my number 5 as well. Yeah.
Okay, here's why I thought it should be on the top 5 list, because he doesn't play the typical hero in it. He's actually working for the KGB, for the Russians.
Right.
And they sent it to the US to stop a rogue agent played by Donald Pleasance.
Right, yeah.
Who is using people there's some kind of hypnotic thing that he's done to them. They used to be Russian, but now they are living in America, and they think that they're Americans. They've gone through some kind of processing, and when he telephones them and says a certain phrase, I'm walking through the woods and it's a long journey, blah 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 blah, they become these zombies who just kill themselves. They become kamikaze, and they kill themselves trying to destroy American bases and installations and stuff like that.
Right.
So Bronson's character is sent out to stop him, and he meets up with another supposedly Russian agent played by Lee Remick. Turns out she's working for the CIA. She's not really Russian.
Yeah. Sure.
And there's a whole little twist with that. But at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, they end up together, and they end up going off, and they tell both governments, hey, leave us alone.
Right.
Otherwise, we've got the little black book with all the agents, that are programmed, and we can set them going if you try to stop us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's a slick little action film with, explosions and, and again, action and, I believe Sterling Silliphant, who, wrote a lot of TV shows that had this kind of plot to them, and Batman and stuff like that. And later on, I think he wrote some of the later Bruce Lee movies, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entertaining watch. And again, as far as Bronson action goes, I like the fact that he's not, Joe Blue American, that he's a Russian, and we're rooting for him anyway.
Yeah.
And Donald Pleasance is a great villain, and we get to see him in ridiculous wigs and stuff in it, which is fun. He puts on disguises when he goes to watch these human bombs, go and try to destroy things. And it's just a fun movie.
Yeah, I described it as a nifty little Cold War thriller. And yeah, exactly. They have all these 50 odd Soviet agents, these sleeper agents, scattered all over the country, who are sort of deactivated after because of détente. And Donald Pleasance is this hardliner who's like, no, we can't have no peace with America, and he absconds with this code book, and like you said, starts calling people. And the phrase is actually from a Robert Frost poem, from stopping by the woods on a snowy evening.
Oh,
and the woods are lovely, dark.
And that's not cool, because if they read Robert Frost, they just automatically
go exactly. Just better hope that these people are not that literate,
not Frost fans.
yeah, or not at a poetry reading. But that's the fun of it, watching all these different, and Sherry North plays one of the people who's activated,
Right.
And she goes off and blows up this chemical plant or something, and then offs herself with the poison pill.
Right.
And Tyne Daly, who of course from Cagney and
Yeah.
Lacey, she has a not really a cameo, but she has a small role as a computer analyst with the CIA, and probably the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, her character's fun.
Yeah,
That's
just
around the
funny.
same time she did the Dirty Harry movie, The Enforcer,
Right. Yeah.
where she played his first female partner.
Yeah. So she was getting some cool roles.
And that was before Cagney and Lacey. Both
Before
of those.
Cagney and Lacey, yeah. And Lee Remick, of course, who's just gorgeous, just a gorgeous woman. And horror fans may remember her. She played Damien's mom, or adopted mom in
The Omen.
In The Omen, yeah.
Yeah.
Who takes that Hitchcockian tumble off the balcony there. But yeah, and I like their banter, you know, 'cause she's like this, you know,
Yeah.
and he's like all serious and like, you know, just
Will
calm
you
down.
please shut up?
Exactly. You know, we have a
You're
mission
too
to do
perky.
here. You know. Exactly. He's just too perky. In every sense of the but yeah, Donald Pleasance is, and I bought his Russian accent more than I did his American accent in Escape from New York. So, but that was fun. And yeah, Pleasance is he's just a great actor as well. But yeah, really enjoyed the movie. It's just, like I
And
said,
he's
it's just
Dr.
fun.
Loomis in Halloween.
And of course, Dr. Loomis in Halloween. Speaking of horror,
The first Blofeld that we see.
oh, that's right. Yeah, with the eye.
You only live twice, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm about to inaugurate a little war. You could watch it all on TV.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, your dog does not like Donald Pleasance.
Apparently not. Apparently not. Hey.
That's Blofeld. That's what he's saying in dog language.
Yeah. And
Damn it.
oh, and he was also in The Great Escape.
Correct.
He was the forger who's losing his eyesight.
The director was very hard on him until James Garner, and I think it was James Coburn, that stepped in and said, "Look, this guy's got a history as a war hero that you would not believe. So just let him do what he's doing, all right?
Exactly.
And let him do it." And the director, pulled back, said, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah, I just read that story before we even started going into this Charles Bronson thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
cool.
They've worked together a couple times.
Yeah. So
all right.
So
we're into our honorable mentions now.
Yes, sir.
House of Wax, that's his first one.
Right.
Great Escape, Dirty Dozen, great ensemble pieces, great action films, war movies. Number 4, The Mechanic. With him and Jan Michael Vincent. He's an assassin. He's a trained killer, killer for hire, and he trains Jan Michael Vincent, who turns against him. And it's got a nice little twist at the end. That's a good Bronson film.
Yeah.
It deserved a mention. And Breakheart Pass.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because The Mechanic for a while was in my top 5, but ultimately Mr. Majestic went out over that one. But yeah, and yeah, all his ensemble movies, Great Escape, Magnificent Seven, they're all in my top 5 as well, or my bottom 5, I guess, or honorable mentions. Valachi Papers is in there. Charlie Varick, and another Western that I sort of hinted at earlier was a movie called Red Sun, where he plays opposite Toshiro Mifune, and that's a sweet little Western as well. Again,
I somehow missed that one. Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. Mifune plays
There's
like
one.
a
There's one.
samurai.
It would have made my dishonorable mention list if I remembered to put it on there. Was it Chato's Land?
Chatos Land. Yeah.
Yeah, which was one of his bad westerns. It wasn't that great.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't all,
They weren't all gems.
they weren't all gems. Exactly.
In his later career, he made some real stinkers. Have you mentioned all your honorable mentions, by the way? I don't want to get into dishonorable mentions when it's too soon.
No, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any dishonorable mentions?
Not really.
Okay. I've
yeah.
got two that really stand out as real stinkers. These are the movies that killed his career, I think. He actually did a TV movie called Yes, Virginia, There Is a Santa Claus, which was actually a pretty nice, sweet Hallmark kind of Christmassy kind of movie. And it's about the editor who wrote the Yes, Virginia, There Is a Santa Claus editorial, and it's the kind of the story behind that, supposedly. But I think it's a fictionalized version. Anyway, that wasn't a bad movie. And that was one of his last films. But he did a couple of there were a couple of guys. Yeah, I'm not sure if they were involved in these movies or not, but they did a lot of like the Chuck Norris films, Golan and Globus. They used to do these really horrible action films with really bad scripts, and they would get they would pay incredible money to like Schwarzenegger did like Raw Deal was one of them. And Sylvester Stallone did Cobra, which is a horrible, horrible action film, terrible. And again, a lot of the Chuck Norris films that you just go, okay, but it's Chuck Norris. It's just really ridiculous plots, the scripts, and terrible directing. And so these kind of fall into that category. I'm not sure if these guys were involved or not. 10 to Midnight is him playing a cop who's after a serial killer, and the serial killer likes to get naked when he kills his prey. It gets to be like ridiculously, uncomfortable and creepy, and not in a way like, oh man, that's creepy. It's like, as an audience member, you're just like, oh God, do we got to see this guy naked again? And the actor that plays the serial killer in it, he's no Andy Robinson, like Scorpio in Dirty Harry. He's just not that good of an actor, and I've never seen him in anything else that I can recognize him. And we've seen just about every inch of his body. Anyway, the other one is called The Evil That Men Do, and he's after a kind of a torturer that works for a dictator. And it's just bad. It's just bad all the way around. It's just not good. And I mean, those pretty much put the nails in his coffin. It's like, okay, it's time to retire.
Yeah.
So those are my dishonorable mentions.
Yeah. Well, I guess I do have one.
Okay.
A movie called Love and Bullets.
Okay. Tell us about it.
Oh, well, and again, it's another one. He is sent to Switzerland. It's a cop movie, and he's the lone wolf who is sent to Switzerland to bring back this or extradite this guy, and that's pretty much it. And the rest is just everything you would expect in a movie.
The guy does not want to be taken back, so he fights, and it's got to
exactly. And a lot of snow and a lot of, but yeah, it's just so predictable, and so it's like, oh no, Charles, no,
don't do it, don't take the money.
And yeah, it's like, okay. And of course his wife Jill Ireland is in it.
Yes.
And it's got a pretty good cast. Besides Bronson and Ireland, you have Rod Steiger and Bradford Dillman, Henry Silva, And I think that's really what kind of brings it down, because Rod Steiger just
Overacts his ass off.
Exactly. He chews so much scenery. You know, he should be charged with, you know, destruction of, you know, environmental, is breaking every environmental law. It's terrible. It's just terrible. So yeah, you know, and it's one of those movies where you thought, oh, well, that sounds interesting. You know, you hear and then you watch it and like, no.
All right, so Love and Bullets came out in '79, which is right after Telefon. So that was probably the end of the heyday right there. Death Wish 2 came out in '82, and it was it was not the best Bronson. It was okay.
Yeah.
And then we have 10 to Midnight, The Evil That Men Do. So here's the end coming. Death Wish 3. I forgot to watch Murphy's Law. I had it, and I forgot to watch it last night. I was going to watch it last night, and I somehow missed out on it. Then after that, him and Jill Ireland in Assassination in '87.
Mm-hmm.
Death Wish 4, which the Crackdown, which I remember is just terrible. Messenger of Death. Have you seen that one?
You know, I don't think I have, but
okay, probably a stinker. That's my guess. Kinjite.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Okay,
not as bad.
Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
Pretty watchable.
The Sea Wolf. Death Wish, The Face of Death, I guess is the title of it. So there's a 5. Paul Kersey. And then he ends off his career with a trilogy, which I've never heard of until just now when I just looked it up here. I didn't even realize these existed. Family of Cops 2, Breach of Faith, and Family of Cops 3, Under Suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing these are bad because I've never heard of them. Again, that was '99 was his last film.
Those were like TV movies, if I remember.
Oh, yeah, TV?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that the Virginia, that was a TV movie.
That was a TV movie, yeah. I remember seeing that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Family of Cops is basically, I don't know if you know about this show, Blue Bloods, with Tom Selleck. It's kind of like that.
Okay.
It is about a family of police people and cops, yeah, hence the title. And Bronson is like the head of the family. You know, he's like the head cop. You know. So there was another one called St. Ives that he did, where he plays a private eye. That, yeah, again, not too bad, not great.
I want to say that he did one with Clint Eastwood, but I can't remember what it was.
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't remember.
I might be thinking of the one that Burt Reynolds did with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Radon Antibia is another one that I
Radon Antibia, yeah. That was actually, yeah, but again, that was kind of more of an ensemble thing. And I think that was a TV movie as well.
Breakout was terrible.
Yeah. The thing about
Warranty Papers, Chato's Land, yeah, oy.
Yeah.
And Chato's Land was 71. I'm sorry, 72, and Red Sun was 71. So.
Yeah. Well, check out Red Sun if you haven't seen it. Just for Toshiro Mifune.
Okay.
And what else was I going to say?
Guns of San Sebastian.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just trying to fill those last few minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Pretty much his movies after the 80s or after the 70s.
After 82, yeah.
After 82, the quality. Yeah.
But again, the movie about Santa Claus was the letter about Santa Claus was actually pretty good.
That was cute. Yeah, it was a good movie. Yeah.
And not you don't expect him to be playing that kind of character. So
right. Yeah.
It was kind of.
And like I said, I did like Kinjite. I thought that was pretty good.
Which one?
Kinjite was actually decent, fairly decent movie, and it got him away from the death spiral.
5 of them. 5.
Yeah. And then there was a remake.
I don't think I've even seen the 5th
later
one.
on.
The 4th one was so incredibly bad.
Yeah,
It's just like, oh my God, can you come up with something new, please? What a cash grab.
Yeah. One of them, he's like defending like this whole like apartment complex.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was 4 or 5.
I think that was 4 because I think I've
Yeah.
seen that one.
Yeah,
And again, it's like,
it's this gang of a gang of ne'er-do-wells. But yeah, it just got horrible, silly. So okay. All right. Well, there you go.
Death Wish 6. I'm saving Santa Claus. There are terrorists coming to the North Pole.
Paul Kersey takes on
Death Wish 7. Death Wish and Paul Kersey goes to space.
in space. Yeah.
Paul Kersey goes to the space station.
I believe there are terrorists here. We must.
There are Russian terrorists trying to destroy the station. I will help you fight them.
Russian gang of ne'er-do-wells.
Somehow the gangs get up there. The Bloods and the Crips are on the space station.
Oh my God. That sounds like a plot for Machete.
Oh yeah, Machete goes into space, doesn't he? Like the second one? That's funny.
No, they
something like that.
It was a trailer for the supposedly third movie. He was supposed to be in space. But
Machete.
They never made that one, unfortunately.
So they will. Just give it time.
I hope so.
He's still alive.
Yeah.
give it time. Who's next week? What is next week's show?
Next week we're going to talk about an actress, and again, one kind of not contemporary, but not like classic Hollywood. We're going to be talking about Miss Jodie Foster.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful child actress from the 70s who grew up to be a fine adult actress. And
Lecter, where are you?
I'm sorry?
Dr. Lecter, where are you?
Exactly. Yeah.
I get to do my impression of Nell next show. Great.
Oh, yay!
Chicken pie with nine.
Yes.
I made fun of that movie for, oh my God, months after it came out.
Every comedian made fun of that movie.
Die in the wind. Sorry, I couldn't wait.
Oh, it's okay. It's
all right. Awesome.
So, yeah.
On Roland Pruitt's Kaiju Review, they're doing King Kong Escapes and the return of actress Linda Miller. She's going to talk about it again with us.
Yay.
Hopefully give some new stories about that film. Also coming up on the Big Monster Briefing Room, Valley of the Guanji, which had some great Ray Harryhausen effects. Ooh. Dinosaurs and
cowboys and dinosaurs.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, they could have called it that, Cowboys and Dinosaurs. But it
would have worked. I don't know where Valley of Guanji came from, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think if I remember correctly, we'll talk about it. It was actually Willis O'Brien originated that idea, but after he passed away, it kind of got filed away, and then Harryhausen said, we need to bring this back. We need to do this.
I work with that guy. I can do that.
Yeah. So it's one of those ideas that just kind of kicked around, and
it's
finally after
dinosaurs.
Yeah. So and James Franciscus as a cowboy. So
I forgot about that part. Great music, though. They've got some great music in that movie. Dun,
yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Was it Herman? Was it Bernard Herrmann did the score?
I don't think so. It might have been Elmer Bernstein. It sounds like Elmer Bernstein kind of music.
Bernstein? Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see when we get there.
All righty. Well, so next week, Jodie Foster. Tomorrow, or whenever you're watching this program, it'll be King Kong Escapes and Valley of Guanji on Thursday.
Don't forget No Icing with Tristan.
And,
No Icing with Sandy D.
And No Icing with Sandy D. Yeah, can't forget
Late
that.
Thursday.
Right. So lots of good stuff to look forward to in the coming in this week in history.
Renee.
Yes, thank you for correcting with it's Sandy D now. Drita has gone on vacation.
Gone.
Yeah, Drita's. I think she's taking a vacation, but Sandy D is here. So there we go.
Yes.
There we go. It's great.
Yeah.
So then Jodie Foster, I'm looking forward to. That'll be fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I hope you have some things to say about her and make a little appearance every now and again.
Oh yeah, well she's no Stanley Kowalski, but she remember Rory when we did Marlon Brando.
Hello,
Stella. Yeah. So I won't get quite that excited.
She hasn't ripped her shirt off in a movie that I know of.
She hasn't done that, and she wouldn't have the same pecs, I don't think. Probably very different.
Well, I don't know.
It would be a little different. It would be a little different.
Oh boy. Yeah. All right, Jodie.
Well, on that note.
I love it. And on that note, good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching this episode of Two Guys and Sometimes a Gal Talking About Movies. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to get future episodes.